Under the blazing lights of California, two men entered the ring, each carrying the hopes of their nations and the weight of their own ambitions. Nonito Donaire of the Philippines, already nicknamed the Filipino Flash, stepped through the ropes with the calm of a fighter destined for greatness. His hands hung loose, his eyes sharp, and his reputation as a counter-punching sharpshooter preceded him. Across from him stood Kahren Harutyunyan, an Armenian warrior based out of Glendale, California, shorter, stockier, and known more for his grit than knockout power. Harutyunyan entered as the underdog, but not without conviction. He had the tools to frustrate, to surprise, to test the young Donaire in ways the Filipino had not yet been tested. The introductions roared, the crowd leaned forward, and when the first bell rang, it was Harutyunyan who made his intentions clear. He leapt forward, threw his punches in bursts, then darted away, giving Donaire an awkward rhythm to solve. For a few rounds, it worked. Harutyunyan's quick jabs and looping rights snapped Donaire's head back just enough to spark murmurs in the crowd. Donaire, hands dangling at his sides, smiled through the fire, his mind processing, timing, waiting for the moment to strike. The tension was palpable, the flash against the grinder, and no one willing to give an inch. The middle of the fight saw Donaire's brilliance slowly rise to the surface. In the fourth round, as Harutyunyan stepped forward, with his chin slightly exposed, Donaire let fly a short left hook that landed clean. Harutyunyan's knees buckled, and he sank to the canvas. The crowd erupted in unison, a collective gasp, followed by thunderous cheers. The Filipino Flash had struck, and for a moment, the Armenian looked undone. But Harutyunyan's heart showed in his response. He beat the count, shook the cobwebs, and marched back into the fire with stubborn pride. Donaire, now brimming with confidence, grinned as he let his combinations flow, his left hook crashing against the gloves, the arms, sometimes the chin of his opponent. Yet Harutyunyan did not fold. He answered with flurries of his own, darting in with short punches to the body, looping rights upstairs, desperate to prove he belonged in this stage. The exchanges turned wild at times, the crowd rising with each clash. It was no longer a one-sided showcase. It had become a battle of wills, of determination and survival. Donaire's power and precision were undeniable, but Harutyunyan's courage turned every round into a contest. As the fight wore on, the physical toll showed most on the Armenian challenger. His breathing grew heavier, his face swelling, a smear of blood across his cheek. Still, he pressed forward. He jabbed, he swung, he moved, but Donaire's rhythm had fully taken over. The Filipino slipped shots with a fluidity that made the crowd gasp, countering with hooks that snapped Harutyunyan's head back. His hands stayed low, but his reflexes were sharp, his anticipation deadly. By the 7th and 8th rounds, Donaire was dictating the pace, walking his opponent down, cutting off the ring. Yet even as the blows landed, Harutyunyan's pride kept him from retreating. He stayed in the pocket longer than he should have, firing back combinations even when the sharper punches belonged to Donaire. The crowd applauded the bravery, knowing they were watching a man unwilling to be broken. Still, the story was shifting. Donaire's youth, his speed, and his sharpness were pulling him ahead, while Harutyunyan fought with sheer grit, searching desperately for something that could turn the tide. The 9th and 10th rounds carried the urgency of desperation. In Harutyunyan's corner, his trainer urged him to go for it all, to find a knockout that had eluded him his entire career. "You need him down this round," the words echoed. And so Harutyunyan pressed harder, throwing more, lunging forward with his right hand, digging to the body, trying to will himself into contention. But Donaire, composed and calm, was no longer the young man studying. He was the predator, stalking, countering, firing sharp lefts and rights that drew gasps with each impact. Late in the fight, a clean left hook rocked Harutyunyan again, and the Armenian staggered back just before the final bell. The crowd erupted in one last roar, a mixture of respect and awe for both warriors who had given everything inside those ropes. When the bell rang to close the 10th round, the fighters embraced, sweat and respect mingling in the center of the ring. The decision now rested in the judges' hands, and the arena buzzed with anticipation. The ring announcer's voice boomed, and tension filled every corner of the venue. After 10 rounds of action, we have a split decision. The crowd gasped. 1 score for Harutyunyan, 1 score for Donaire. And then the final card, in favor of the winner, and new NABF Super Flyweight Champion, the Filipino Flash, Nonito Donaire. The arena exploded with applause and cheers. Donaire, his arm raised high, smiled with relief and pride. This was more than just a victory, it was a launching point. For Harutyunyan, the loss was bitter but honorable. He had stood toe-to-toe with a man who would one day become a world champion and had forced him to dig deep. For Donaire, it was another step in a journey toward greatness, another chapter in the story of a fighter destined to become one of the Philippines' most celebrated warriors. That night, the Flash announced himself to the world, fast, powerful, resilient, and hungry, the kind of fighter who could turn a split-second open